Good morning. Player recap and reflections of last night's session 9, part 2, Symbaroum. David, this is a continuation of David's last session in our rotating GM campaign. Fantastic. So I titled this To Save the Boy. There's been other suggestions, playing possum, uninvited house guest, which, kind of has a dual meaning, as we were interrupted in session by a possum visiting Dale, literally off his patio. So while Dale's playing, a possum comes to the back door. Dale claims it just wandered up on him from a crick, but I have a feeling it's his pet. I have a feeling he keeps it back there, walks it on a leash around the neighborhood, probably. Or it's dinner, fresh possum for dinner tonight. Don't know. We'll never know, right? This is it. But uninvited house guest could be referring to the pet possum showing up, but also in our party doing basically a home invasion of what we perceive, we've been told is a cave where we can find mushrooms as part of a antidote for the boy who has been poisoned from the last episode. So yeah, uninvited house guest would have been a good title too, but I kind of like To Save the Boy. It has gravitas, feels like it's weighty, serious, which it is, but it isn't. We have a great time. Another great session. David, now this is what's cool about last night's session. I'm a big believer. When I play a game, even if to the viewer, so to speak, to the gaming public, it may look like what we're doing is not that different than what we do in other games, but there are subtle differences. Obviously, there's the major rule differences, like we roll everything, et cetera, et cetera. We prompt dice rolls. We ultimately, player facing, should be soliciting checks. All the GM would really do is say, well, it's really this attribute, or the GM would be saying, yeah, modify it by a -4 difficulty or +2 difficulty, et cetera. But for the most part, if Dale wants to use his cunning to investigate the scene, he would just say, I'm investigating the scene. I'm going to make a cunning check, and he'd pick up the dice. And right, that's really the gist of how this should feel different, should play different. But there's another key, which I talked about early in my Symbaroum videos when I talked about what it is I like about Symbaroum. Our interludes, I mean, the game makes no, I don't think a lot of people play it this way, but the game states plainly interludes and scenes. Scenes can be prompted by GM or by player. So I could prompt a scene by saying, Terrell wants to head over to the blacksmith and have a new haft made for my pole arm, and I want to negotiate less than the book price for a pole arm because I'm just getting the haft. And David may say, yeah, no sweat, it's done. Or David may say, yeah, we need to make a check versus your persuasion to see if you barter that haft down to half price to fix my pole arm, right? I'm prompting the scene, and I'm stating I want to get my pole arm fixed for half the price of buying a new pole arm, right? Or armor, right? The armor that was damaged, etc. Okay. And so I appreciate, number one, the interlude idea. And then, of course, that we're going to scenes. And I like it. It doesn't have to be declared so much because that's meta, but I don't mind it being declared. I don't mind us understanding we're being described something, and we're in transit, and we're moving, and this is what's happening. And now we're in a scene because it also clears temporary corruption. It resets certain game mechanics that allows us all to know where we're at, what we're doing. And so David does this seamlessly. He really did a great job of interlude, and then just a subtle hint that he prompt a new scene or that we're into a new scene. And I think in one moment he flat just said we're on to the next scene, which is I'm okay with. I'm okay with role-playing games having role-playing conversation. I'm okay with role-playing games meta. There is meta there. What I'm not okay with is when players use game information that their characters wouldn't know. I don't like meta character play. I don't mind meta gaming. We can't play without meta conversation. We can't. But I've often probably, when I talk about I don't like meta gaming, I mean I don't like players using knowledge that they wouldn't have. I teased Dell quite a bit last week in our Joth game using meta information that obviously Dell wasn't appreciating, right? I knew things my character wouldn't have known, so to speak. Jibing Dell a little bit. So anyway, great game, another great game. And Symbaroum, I could do this. I could rotate and play Symbaroum indefinitely. I mean, who needs D&D 5th edition when we can just play Symbaroum for a modern fantasy game with elements that are distinctly different than the traditional D20 fantasy game? Player-facing mechanics, no hit point bubble, enough abilities that our characters have a little bit of meaning in the fiction, but also we have certain things that we can improve our ability to be successful in given moments. I love armor soak. I love the defense mechanism. I love the quickness. I like that it's player face. It does so many things just different enough than a traditional D20 or the new D&D 5e or whatever, D&D 4, Pathfinder, whatever, that makes it more suitable to me as a modern fantasy game versus what we're doing and the game I grew up with, Moldvay, OSE, White Box, whatever. Those games, I like them for exactly what they are. I want to play Joff as Moldvay / Old School Essentials, and I want that experience. I don't mind if we've added some hot rods. I don't mind that we might hand wave exactly missiles versus movement versus. We all know the game so well. We've grown up with it. I don't mind that, right? I don't mind there being a lot of flexibility in the old D20 formula. But when I'm going to play a different game, right? Okay, and then Dark Age of Man, despite how it may look, it's a completely different experience, completely different game. It may not appear that way when you watch it, and it may not appear that way when you see us play it, but the reality is it is a completely different system, completely different prompts, experience, especially for the GM guy, the guy on this side of the table in Dark Age of Man. So I'm having three, I would say, unique experiences, game-wise, player-wise, GM-wise, rule system-wise, although they don't always look that different. So again, those who aren't really paying attention might not notice David's subtle transitions from interlude to scenes. It was awesome to have Justin back as Vicamir. Justin launched with us in our rotating GM sessions, and then unfortunately, Justin's just had a busy life, and it's been difficult for him. And again, for him, these games are starting late. By the time we're done last night, these guys are looking at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. They got to get up and go to work in the morning. They have families, etc. So it's not easy to play. I totally understand that. But it is appreciated that Justin was able to get in last night. I'm hoping Justin can join us in Joff again next week, and hopefully Justin will be capable, depending on his life and his setting. But doors always open, right? Come and go, and that's been one of the great things about this group. There might be 4 of us one week, might be 3 of us one week, and some of us are more consistent than others. David and Dell are really consistent. Todd is very consistent, but sometimes it happens. We miss some stuff, but ultimately they're perfect drop in, drop out tables with campaigns, and it's fantastic. Okay, so recap. Session 1, quickly, we Bonner, the young apprentice of Dell's character Thariah, the changeling wizard, whatever he calls himself, a rune staff wizard or something like that, comes banging on us. This is the session previous, kicks in the door and says, "Oh my God, guys, Malleus is in trouble. He's at the Dump, which is a tavern in a bad side of town, and there are people looking for him. They claim that Malleus owes them 300 shillings. Come quick." Argello sent me. Argello's the one who sent the boy. So we all run down, go into that tavern. We see Malleus is passed out drunk at the end. We see a big barbarian lug and his thugs eyeballing him, and Todd and the boy get involved with a conversation with Argello. Argello pitches a pint of poisonous liquid in the face of Todd's character. He misses and hits the boy Bonner. Bonner goes down immediately, unconscious. Dell is attempting to recruit some revelers in the corner, and my character, trying to buy time for Todd to get Malleus out, cuts off the big barbarian and has a face-to-face with the barbarian. It leads to a little bit of action in which Cabello puts down 2 of his henchmen, and he surrenders. And I tell him, "We call it even. You pay us, whatever Malleus owes you, we call it even for your life." He asked me to ransom his life, and I told him even, and he actually gave us another 300 shillings. So we left there in the plus Malleus's debts erased. And the boy's unconscious. The changeling we drag out. We don't know it's a changeling. We think it's Malleus. We drag him out in the street. Curtain falls. Curtain rises on session last night. We discover the boy is still unconscious. We discover as we look over, Malleus is no longer Malleus. He is reverted back into his changeling form, and he is dead. So we carry the dead changeling and the boy back to our townhome in Thistlehold. The townhome, again, remember, is on loan to us by the Queen's Chamberlain as a place for us to reside in Thistlehold, free of charge. And we are agents for the Chamberlain if he calls on us, so to speak. So that's why we have this townhome in Thistlehold. Not a pretty sight of Thistlehold. The Chamberlain, this would not be where the Chamberlain would stay when he would come to Thistlehold, but it's a property he owns that's, he can use for these things. Okay. We take him back. Vicamir immediately, we come in the townhome, there's Vicamir who has been gone back to his tribe or whatever in the woods for months. And my character knows of him and recognizes him briefly, introduces him to Cabello and Thoraya. We lay the boy down, and Vicamir immediately goes to work healing him, and he manages to heal him with a ritual. However, the boy he jolts like he's been shocked, but he doesn't come awake. And we agree then to begin to look. I search my memory if I have a contact that might know alchemy or apothecary or something that would let us treat the boy, and I can't come up with it. But Cabello does, and he remembers a guy named Ansel that lives in Blackmore, Tent City, and he should be able to help us at least come up with what's wrong with the boy. So we pack the boy up on a litter with the dead changeling. We head out of town of Thistlehold. We deposit the changeling in the hill, which was Dell's character Thoraya wanted the changeling to be put in nature where he could be devoured and recycled back into nature by those natural occurrences. Taro makes note of that and says, this is something you believe. Then when you die, I will do the same. I will leave your body to be devoured by nature, and you will be recycled into the world, and meaning it dead seriously, of course. And so we have a great exchange there. We pack the boy back up on the litter, and we carry him off to Blackmore in the wee hours of the morning or in the evening. I don't remember exactly which. We burst in on the apothecary Ansel, lay the boy out on the table and say, what's wrong with the boy? Can you cure this? He looks it over. There's some conversations exchanged. I offer to pay a little bit to sweeten the pool as Cabello tries to negotiate. Thoraya makes subtle threats with his staff, trying to convince this guy to do our bidding because he's a little irritated. We just kind of kicked his door in Tent City in the middle of the night, dropped this kid on his table, knocking everything about. Do something with this boy. He assesses the situation. He says, I own some of the ingredients, but there are ingredients that you're going to have to get. And he knows the location where they can be harvested in a cave in the Bright Davakar. And he doesn't know to what extent or how long the boy may have. So we really are pressed for time. Get out. I'll keep the boy here. I'll take care of the boy. You go fetch these mushrooms, right? So we load up in a hurry, drop off and off into the Bright Davakar, where marked on the map, to the cave. And we get to a signpost, an old leaning stone ruin with post with etchings and rune carvings in it. And Cabello and Thoraya, Vicamir, I think it's Vicamir, Vicamir and Thoraya observe these and investigate these runes. It's basically a memorial, an old elven stone memorial to a battle won with great life lost, marking a memorial battlefield, so to speak, in the Bright Davakar. Cabello also assess it, and he, like Taro, just think it's a signpost saying this way to cave, right? We trudge on, not very far from there, 40 meters or so, 40 yards or so, and there's the mouth of the cave. As we approach, we discover carcasses of animals, half-eaten, some completely decomposing, some not so decomposed, and there's quite a few of them, so we know now there's some kind of predator around this cave. Dell turns himself into a skunk. By the way, Vicamir, as we arrive, as we go out back into the wilderness, Vicamir calls his wolf Midnight to him, and we meet the wolf, and then we head off. Dell, once we get into the Davokar turns himself into a skunk and kind of leads the way with Cabello. As Cabello, after seeing this stone, discerns that there's got to be elven treasure, because the elves leave their bodies to do the same as the changeling, to be devoured by nature. Therefore, he believes there's got to be elven treasure around here. So Cabello's kind of leading the way. Vicamir with torch and basket for mushrooms behind me with my polearm. But both Cabello and the skunk, Thoraya in skunk form, are kind of in a hurry. And as they enter the cave, Thoraya is caught in a snare, an animal snare. We have to free him from that. As a skunk, he evacuates his glands, stinking up the area and the cave. And we obviously make enough noise and enough's going on that we get the attention of the resident of said cave. And as he approaches us, a mountain of a man, ogre type creature, 8 feet tall, broad, gigantic, with dragging a studded club that has all kinds of rocks and things embedded in it, and asked us to leave his cave. And then Cabello mentions treasure, and then he goes, "I knew it. I knew you were here to get my treasure." And at that point, he begins to come toward us, in which my character intercedes, and we go into a fight with this ogre, for the lack of a better word. He calls himself Clag, so we know his name. He reeks of corruption. His eyes are black, and the stench that protrudes from his entire being is clearly corruption. It's a corrupt creature, which is also brilliant the way Dave projects that corruption, because we don't use witch sight on it, but we can tell from its look or from its stench or its eyes that there's some corruption here. But it's so bad we knew it was very corrupt. Okay. Dell in skunk form looks for these mushrooms while we're fighting this creature. We finish the creature off pretty quick, all of us, Cabello and I mostly, while Vicamir uses the torch to basically create advantage for us, or to create, in a way, boosting or making his defense worse while he fights off this torch that he clearly doesn't like. So very cool, as Vicamir uses the torch basically to give us an advantage on defense. We discover that the blood is acidic. My character suffers some acid wounds from the blood. So I'm doing damage to it, and severe damage, but unfortunately I'm exposed to its blood. I'm taking damage on a regular basis. We defeat this creature. I immediately ask Vicamir to help me off with the armor because it's burning me. He helps me cut it off, but that destroys my armor. My armor destroyed by the acid, and we're cutting the buckles off. So I'm reduced to no armor, basically. My pole arm is destroyed via the acid, but I'm able to recover the blade, so I can have a new pole arm made. And Dell's character finds the mushrooms, and we harvest the mushrooms. Everything at that point said and done. Cabello looks for treasure, does discover a hoard, a loot. We don't have time to go through it. We don't know what it entails. But Cabello gets his elven treasure, or a treasure of sorts, Clag's treasure, so to speak. And we head back. We get back in the wee hours of the morning, and Ansel mixes the antidote, and Thoraya administers the antidote to the unconscious Bonner, and fortunately it rouses him from his coma. He wakens, worse for wear, but alive and awake, and I pay 5 thalers to the Ansel, the apothecary. And he says to Cabello, "I still have more information for you on the changeling," referring to Thoraya's character, some mystery there that Ansel wants to share with Cabello about Thoraya's race, the changelings, so to speak. Meanwhile, Taro's preoccupied with Argello, the gentleman who set us up, the one who put us in this situation by lying to us about Malleus, and by getting us in front of the debt collectors, and by trying to poison Cabello, and instead poisoning the young boy, the sidekick of Dell, or the apprentice of Dell. So I'm clearly at this point, Taro's thinking about Argello, and finding that SOB, and discovering what is his motives, why did he do what he did. But that's where we draw the curtain. It was a great session, another great session, and there's not, I can't say enough. I mean, we're now completely comfortable with Symbaroum. The only thing we're gonna have to look up our details. Like this particular creature had particular acidic blood that when we drew damage on it, the blood could then cause reciprocal damage. So those are the kind of things that you just as a GM do in any game you play, right? This particular creature does these things. There's going to be feats and traits and skills and things that we might have that we have to touch back on. But aside from that, Symbaroum feels great, and we're beginning, I think, to play Symbaroum a little differently than we play other D20 games or other games, right? We really, as a player-facing game, we would be in many ways just saying we're going to investigate this stone. I'm going to use Lore Master on it, or hey, I'm going to look at it and use my cunning to see if I can decipher it. And you pick up the dice, and then the GM would say, well, because you don't have any significant knowledge on this, it's a -5 to your cunning. It's becoming easier for us to just, as a player-facing game, make the decisions to roll dice, as opposed to the GM saying roll dice, right? And I do believe that's a big difference. Now, that doesn't mean guys are playing Symbaroum that way. It doesn't mean that people who even love Symbaroum are playing it that way. But the gist of a player-facing game is we would say, I'm investigating the stone. I'm using my cunning. Can I tell what these runes say? All David would have to say is, yeah, it's a cunning check at -5 because you don't have any known attributes that would positively affect this. As opposed to Thariah, who says, hey, I have Lore Master, and he says, oh, okay, you make this check, straight cunning, no negatives, right? That's just what player-facing means. It means we're, he prompts us with the scene, or he prompts us with the setup, but then we're taking initiative, right? We're doing the thing. And I want it to feel that way, because I don't want to play Symbaroum like we play everything else. I don't want to play Dark Age of Man like we play everything else. Again, there is subtle differences that matter over the long haul to the experience we're having. Last night's experience of Symbaroum felt different than the previous versions. Although every session we've ever had of Symbaroum has been fantastic, we're starting to see now that the players really call out or even ask for scenes. I could declare a scene. Before we leave town, I want to stop at the blacksmith and purchase better armor. I prompt a scene. David says there's nothing really to do here unless you want to barter with him, right? I could prompt the scene to say, yeah, and I'm looking to get it at a discount. So therefore, a scene is created in which we have to make a die roll to win the discount. If not, I got to pay full price or not buy it at all. So that kind of stuff's simple to do, but there has to be wiggle room there for the players to create a scene or to ask for a simple scene, which would ultimately create a mechanical check of some kind, right? So I again, it's last night started to feel more like a player-facing game in which Symbaroum is a different experience to some degree, right? Again, fantastic. Dave does a great job of facilitating the rules. He does a great job of adjudicating, where he's going to have to take fiat and he's going to have to do things, but really good at describing it and setting us on a tone. And what's great about Dave is he also he has these subtle ways of setting up. How do I say this? He has these very clever ways of setting up the reason we're going to be in a particular scene, right? And I appreciate that. It's very, he doesn't, it foreshadows a tiny bit, but for the most part, it's not a lot of foreshadows. Like we're in the scene and then it makes complete sense how that scene leads to the next, right? But while you're in it, you're not picking that up, which is very cool, right? At least that's how I experienced Dave's GM delivery on this thing. It's very, very well done. And again, I love Symbaroum, man. The creature battles. What I love about Symbaroum is how hard it is to fight a creature is not always predicated on how hard it is to hit the creature. Big, slow, cumbersome creatures are easy to hit, but they're not easy to damage depending on their defense. I mean, their armor, or depending on their vulnerabilities or their immunities. And it really makes for fun, dynamic combat. Although we don't play a ton of combat in Symbaroum, but you could. And there will be times where there might be other sessions where we have more combat or whatever. But it's one of the things I really appreciate. Fast creatures, hard to hit, right? Slow, big, cumbersome creatures, easy to hit. it makes total sense, right? We're not swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss. We're trying to actually cause physical damage to a thing. I like the way most magic bypasses armor, right? So we get that chance strategically, tactically for armor bypass stuff like Theria's magic. He's cold, bypasses the armor and causes simple damage, not a lot of damage, but it causes damage to this creature. Despite maybe martial weapons, the thick skin of this creature. Fantastic. I love it. So anyway, that was session 9, part 2. I believe Dell's next up to GM, or again, Todd. We would love to see Todd and do this. We'd love to see, again, this is meant to rotate. We want everybody to have the experience of being a player. We want everybody to have the experience of GMing Symbaroum. And it's making great camaraderie as it allows everybody to enjoy both sides of the table in a great game. And because Symbaroum doesn't require the GM to do a ton of dice rolling and dice checks and things in session, it's really an easy. It allows the GM to set the table for the things and to make sure the creatures are adequately represented in their mechanical effects, et cetera, et cetera. But in that sense, to me, it's a very simple game to GM. And so it should allow everybody to have a good time doing this thing, right, as a GM. And I love experiencing the game as a player, and I love experiencing the game as a GM. And I like also experiencing Todd as a player, but Todd is the GM. And I like to experience Dell as a player, Dell as a GM, David as a player, David as a GM. It's just making a great experience. And I can't say enough for that reason. So anyway, there's my recap. It was a great Taro beginning to slowly come out of his self-loathing, his hopelessness. There's a moment where Taro basically is beginning to see maybe Theria has answers that, because he has been lost. He's been a lost soul, has Taro, since they've been found as criminals. They've lost their right to adventure in the Davokar, and he went to the far side, right, into drunkenness and whoring and debauchery, etc. And he's come back leaner, and trying to find a reason to live. He, in the last sessions, I ultimately was going to allow her to kick my arse physically. If it was a fist fight, I was going to let him kick my arse around because of self-loathing and self-hatred that Taro has for who he is and what how he's gotten here, and in a way is not afraid to die, so to speak. But last night he begins to see his why. Again, there's a moment where I enter the Davokar, and as Taro, I say, this was where my legend was to be made. And then later, the fight with the creature, Taro's beginning to get his mojo back, right? I feel like Taro is now back to doing what he does best, even though we're there illegally, even though I'm not there legally, so to speak. And we ultimately banish this creature. We destroy this monster that has been mutilating and killing all passersby. So we had no compunction to destroy this very corrupt, evil creature that had been murdering trespassers and had been murdering people and creatures for who knows how long. But Taro now starting to get self-confidence back, starting to feel like, okay, wait, that's right, I was born to do this. And so maybe it was a great session for me as Taro, for sure. And so I'm digging that. And we're seeing more Cabello and what Cabello's about, which is awesome as hell. And Vicamir, Justin did a good job in session 1 of establishing kind of what Vicamir was all about. And it took Justin less than 10 minutes into session to instantly establish Vicamir, right? This giant barbarian who's almost too tall for the room immediately takes the boy in hand and starts casting a ritual of healing on this unconscious boy. I mean, Justin took 10 minutes to establish a physical space and establish who he was and what he was about. And at every turn, Justin would very subtly remind us, who's Vicamir and what Vicamir's about, what Vicamir believes. It was a great moment where Taro was going to leave. So Dell's character as a skunk gets caught in a trap and he can't revert back. He fails the check to return back into a changeling. And Taro's prepared as he looks, he says, oh, it's just a simple snare. Yes, it hurts, but let's get on with this. Let's leave him here. We'll get him on the way out. And Taro starts to step over him. And Vicamir says, no, I won't let any animal, no matter who it is, wallow in this extreme pain and discomfort. And he tears the trap to pieces and rescues Dell's character, the skunk, from a snare. And these are the subtle things that Justin does to make sure we know who Vic Amir is in a very subtle way. And it establishes a stature, it establishes a character. And it's just wonderful to have all these guys back in full stead. And of course, Dell always is establishing his character, right? Dell is pretty much playing from first person. There are times I play very much first person, depends on the game, and there's other times I play really third person, or I play from a somewhat distant position. But Dell's doing a good job trying to stay in that first person, etc. And it's fantastic. There's no doubt we know who Thariah is, and there's no doubt we know what Dell's motivations are. But it's very interesting to watch Justin establish Vic Amir with subtle things. He establishes the wolf, bringing the wolf back to us once we get out in nature. We meet the wolf. He establishes a relationship with the wolf. He won't allow the wolf to get into danger with this creature, and he keeps it out of the battle. All of that tells us who Vic Amir is as a human being, as a barbarian, as a man of nature, a man that puts nature maybe above humans, right, and above the status of mechanical or whatever. And of course, we get from that the sense too that he's a witch, as he's already cast rituals. So it's just fantastic, and I can't say enough about this group of guys and these games. Next Wednesday night, it's going to be Joth. We're getting back to Joth. We're in a cliffhanger in Joth, and hopefully Justin will be able to join back as Gus, the thief, the sandwich maker thief. This will be kind of fun back in Joth with Old School Essentials. So again, stay tuned. As always, we try to record those games, get the APs up, and we always try to do some kind of recap so people can kind of get a sense of what's happening in the campaign, or a sense of how the experience is going. So anyway, everybody out there, you have a great weekend and enjoy. Bye.